we do need to. I don't want the bid being in deficit. It's in nobody's interest for that to happen. So if this time this company's coming in to raise funds for the bid, I'll support it for this event. I just don't want it to be the situation going forward. I don't want this to be precedent that every event we do, well, we're kind of inviting these people in from the outside that don't have bricks and mortar and don't have the staff to come and then leave. Unless it is something that is directly contributing to the event, but I just don't feel the board does that because we've already got that and that's who we're trying to bring up. But I think it's still very important that the bid support this event and that they have the financial means to do so. So I will support Eric on bringing in this company just because we need to. We're 3 weeks away. But I do believe in the future. I think it would be better for us to be coming up with a little more of a sponsorship package. Or actually, and we're working on this. So by no means, we're always learning. This is not an attack on Eric. I do not want, or the big board. I don't want that to come across as the case. I understand there's always work. We're always busy. We've always got things going on, and it's not easy to always go out and get all the funds in that you need. I just don't want it in the future to be something where basically we're funding the bid through an event that's to enhance the businesses anyway. So I just did want to state that there was some miscommunication today with us, so yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, Mr. Bryce, it is so nice to hear that, that there was some discussion and arrived at greater understanding on both sides. From the village's standpoint, I am a member of the bid board by president appointment, so I would say that, to your point, anything that you want to change for next year would go to the bid board to negotiate. Negotiate's a strong word, but
yeah,
to work it out and try it this year, see how it goes, and then we'll proceed. But really, the village's business is only to approve the permit that's being approve or deny the permit that's being requested. It's not to make any decisions about what the bid does with their events.
Okay.
And that was going to be my recommendation, is that the village not get involved in, what the bid does and doesn't do along their events, that we just monitor the policy around it. Just again.
I just want to clarify, because when he brought this is the second year, but he said that it was only because it was on a Sunday, and next year when St. Patrick's Day is on a Monday, we were not proposing this event.
No. Do you remember last year what we had discussed last year?
This event is just this year, right?
Oh no, we're looking at annual because we're not doing it on Paddy's Day. What we essentially was looking at after last year's discussion was to try and keep it close to Paddy's Day, but on a weekend. Never doing it like whatever day Paddy's Day is regardless, just kind of picking a weekend day closest to Paddy's Day that works best.
I distinctly remember you saying it was just last year and this year because it occurred on the weekend. Is that, am I misremembering? Or is it
No, I believe I did. I did believe I'd said we'd like to do it, this was a great opportunity with it being a weekend. But afterwards, it was quite simply because it went so well. The community seemed as, this is on you guys, it seemed as though the community feedback was so good that people we'd love to do it on the weekends. We just don't want to follow Paddy's Day. I don't want to do it on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It just made sense for us to target the weekend. And again, we'll put forward, you guys can see how it goes again this year, and hopefully it goes great and it adds value. I do know last year it brought in well over 12,000 people, including majority from outside of the area, which is a big thing that does need to happen with the bid district, inviting people into Shorewood to show them what a great community we have. And I do think the event we had no arrests, everything went swimmingly, we closed down the streets, made it look beautiful again, and I think it went well enough that it's something that might put us on the map a little bit. But yeah, I did initially, I will say, I remember coming forward because we were saying it's Saturday, let's do it on a Saturday. I am hoping if it goes well again this year we could come back, but obviously I won't be asking for a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah. It'll come before us as a proposal.
Okay, thank you guys, thanks for listening. Cheers.
Any other comments this evening before we ask for a vote?
Can I just clarify, so the vote is on the extension of premises to allow the bid to have a beer tent at the. Is that I'm sorry, I didn't read the item real carefully because I figured it was a pro forma. So what
has to be placed is Shorewood business district, and then in additional item, the extension of premises for the Broad House. Two separate kind of.
Oh, they're two separate, okay.
Within the-
Okay.
One motion.
Okay. And the extension of premises.
Yeah.
I have a motion. Second. Ms. Brennan?
I'm Stephanie Sherman. I'm the resident member of the bid board, and I was the executive director for the West Town Association, one of the downtown bids, and was in the third ward for way too many years. And now work in the Harbor District. But I just wanted to say, having been involved in special events with bids, it's pretty standard for the organizations to raise sponsorship and usually have a bar or a beer and wine tent where their volunteers work to help raise money to offset the costs of making it all happen. So we're not unique in Shorewood. River Rhythms, Jazz in the Park, Castile Days, the Third Ward Art Festival, all of those, the organization hosts a beer and wine tent where the volunteers work on behalf of the organization. So I just wanted to make that.
Thank you. I believe the Men's Club does that, right, with their chicken dinner as well.
Can I just add to that, please?
Right.
I totally agree with that. However, those things that you talked about have 50, 60,000 people, and they're not within a 1 square block. Yes, Jazz in the Park is, but that's every weekend with well over 20,000 people
Right.
coming.
Mr. Price,
So,
if I may,
yeah, sorry.
I think
Yeah,
we have what we need.
yeah, you do. And I'm all for the vote. I'm all for them getting no answers. It's just the precedent.
I mean, it's like, well, I'll just use the example of River and Westtown. That started out as a really small event, and, you know, so
Again, I don't know that we,
you don't need it.
unless the village board needs to hear more of both
I'm
sides.
still going to support the motion.
Okay.
We
Would
all
anybody
agree
like to
on
call the
that,
question?
I'd like to call the question.
Second to call the question?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Of call the question.
Of call the question?
Yes, aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. All those in favor of the motion on the floor? To-
Aye.
Does anybody need to read it? We all know? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
6-1. No, 5-1.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, David.
Can't wait.
I know it's going to be good. Thank you, guys.
David, don't worry, I'll come up too.
I'm sorry, we're going to continue on item 7 because I've been asked to.
No, that's good.
Item 7, public hearings, we have none this evening. Item 8, citizens is heard. This item is for now is not on the agenda. Discussion may follow comments on non-agenda items or discussion and action. Are there any citizens to be heard?
Excited to see this one.
Seeing none, we will move on to item 9, which is new business. 9A, consider awarding contract for 2019 Woodward Water Main Relay Project. This is the fourth time we've reviewed this item. We have materials in our package on the page. Is there a page number? Okay. Leah, is there anything you'd like to call our attention to in particular?
I think the thing that you may wish to consider tonight is because of, well, let me back up. So this is our non-road water main relay project, which occurs in our calendar year. Since 2016, we have been adding to the bid an alternative for contractors to provide a price to replace the private portion of the water service. Because of the way that we structure that bid, we find ourselves in an interesting situation where if you just look at the work that the contractor has responded to on the village's public portion of the system, the low bid would be UPI. If you add in the portion that alternative two, which is the private services, your low bidder is Mid-City. So I did ask Attorney Barron, he did provide an opinion, which is included in your packet. And it basically says, because of the circumstances here, there's really no specific guidance from the statutes. You have the discretion to choose which of the, which way you prefer to award the contract. An award to UPI would provide the lowest cost work on the public portion of the distribution system. An award to Mid-City would cost the village approximately $10,000 more for the work on the public system, but would provide a lower cost to interested residents who may wish to replace their private service. For your reference, I did include our participation rates on past projects,
Which is low.
so kind of the break-even point where you make up, so to speak, that $10,000, you need at least half of the people to participate. We've never had that level of participation.
I was just doing a little bit of math, so is the difference between the two is about 150,000 and there's 30 households. So it's 5,000 what they're saying they would charge am I doing that right? What are they saying that if I wanted to replace my part of the lateral, what are the bids just for per household, per house, whatever?
So it's alternative two. Mid-City, it would be, and I apologize, I should have this, the 166,000 divided by the 27 services. The cost difference between the two is $750. I can do the math.
Yeah, so it's about 5,000.
It's about $5,000.
That's a lot. Is that what it was the last time?
Actually, prices seem to be creeping up rather than going down. And, in part it's because oftentimes your public distribution system type contractors will not have a master plumber on staff. They're not required to work under a master plumber under Wisconsin statute. They don't need to do it. But a master plumber does need to oversee work on the private side of the system. So in some cases, they'll contract that out, then there's some overhead, they have to mark it up, it costs. That's not the case with Mid-City. Mid-City really does all ends of the spectrum. They do private plumbing, they also do public construction projects, so that probably speaks to why their cost is the lowest on the service alternative. But yeah, we've been watching that and hoping that as this becomes more commonplace, that those prices would come down and they're not. And even the prices that we're seeing when a resident chooses to replace a service on their own, those prices have not been coming down. If anything, they're inching up.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
It is.
I just have a question about, so our that 27 number, that's what we're projecting are going to do?
No, those are the total number of public side services we're replacing.
That work on our side?
Yeah, on our side.
Okay. So, I mean, realistically, we're talking about one, maybe two residents?
Well, if the past is an indication, yes. I would like to think not. We kind of looked at all the things we've done in the past and how can we make this more appealing, make people more interested. And one of the things we thought, well, this is a pretty big, this is a big chunk to chew off, right? So we mailed a postcard like right after the first of the year that said we're doing this project this year. You get 5 years to pay it back, just to give them as much notice as possible. So we sent out 27 postcards, not one response. And they're big postcards. They're like huge and they're colored. So you wouldn't mistake it for.
I mean, because even at $5,000 over 5 years, even that interest free, I mean, that's a pretty hefty payment, so, it's not, you know,
It is. Last,
right.
2 years ago, Whitefish Bay did a project and bid it exactly the same way that we do things. They had over 95% participation.
Wow.
Was there any difference in between, anything that would happen with that?
Not that we could find.
When do they notify residents that that's happening?
On that particular project, I don't know.
So I wonder, you know, I mean, somewhat personally speaking, you know, thinking about how we budget in our family, you know, would potentially additional notification be helpful? You know, I don't know, I'm just sort of.
Like a year in advance?
Right, like, I wonder if that would help gain some additional participation.
It's certainly possible. You may recall that one of the initiatives our department submitted for your consideration in 19 was really looking at a lead service replacement policy that would include, you know, review of potential financial assistance. Because the laws have changed, GSC regulations would now allow you to use rate money on prep for, so, you know, that's still something I would advocate, that, you know, we should probably have a larger discussion about